Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Treasure Travel, and here's our story. Hi, Ollie. In one of your recent videos, the author discussed how he was berated by his parents when he brought home a bad report card. This was a trigger for me because my parents used grades to demoralize me and my sister from kindergarten through college. My parents also used food, weight, and chores to also mercilessly berate us. Both my parents are narcissists, and that made for a horrific childhood, intolerable interactions with them in my adulthood. I send you a donation to accompany this letter. Thanks in advance for your input on this subject. Perfect hell. My narc parents seem to revel in their power to move the goalposts. All narcissists move the goalposts. I mean, that's part of being a narcissist, is you get to move. Not only you get to change all the rules, the rules don't apply to you, you constantly get to move the goalpost. Which that means like, oh, you think you crossed the line? No, we're going to move it. We're going to move it. When the child accomplishes something, the narc parent can simply move the finish line further down the road. It's also the carrot at the end of the stick as well. Same deal. Whether it's they're moving the goalpost or you're chasing that carrot at the end of a stick that you're never going to get your hands on, it's the same thing. This gaslighting technique tends to create two possible outcomes. Either the child becomes a perfectionist and grows up to be perpetually unsatisfied with their imperfect self, or two, the child experiences learned helplessness in which they give up before they even try things. My sister grew up with the burden of the latter condition, and I grew up trying in vain to achieve perfection. I was more the latter myself. As a result, we both suffer from generalized anxiety disorder as adults that stems from low self-esteem. Setting up a kid to feel like a failure if they are not perfect is abusive as hell. In contrast, normal parents teach their children resilience. Since life is full of setbacks and hard knocks, there is no such thing as perfection, so learning how to get back up on the horse is critical skill for developing onto healthy, productive, happy, emotional, mature adult. They don't want you on the, but the point of this abuse is they don't ever want you to get on the, you shouldn't have gotten on the horse in the first place. Forget getting back up on it. What did you even try to get on it for in the first place? Moron. Stupid. Why did you do it, Matthew? Because I'm stupid. In front of people. In front of my parent. In front of my family. His side of the family. Below, I give examples of how my parents sadistically use grades, food, body weight, and chores to relentlessly drill into us our worthlessness. There is a scene in my favorite movie, Memoirs of a Geisha, where Siri yells, "I'm not worthless." I feel like I've been trying to convince myself that since I was 4. My dad was hung up on grades, and any grade lower than an A resulted in a severe tongue lashing. My grades were terrible because I just couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. Grades would always be used to berate us. If you got a B plus, it should have been an A. If you got an A, then why wasn't it an A plus? We constantly had to hear about how great he had been in school. Even though my mother is not an intelligent person and got poor grades, she never defended us, as it was clear that she derived sadistic pleasure whenever Dad was disgusted with the girls. And here's the funny thing. I was berated for my grades, and I got terrible grades because I was younger than everyone, I was smaller than everyone, I was immature, less mature than everyone, everybody was 2 years older than me. It was bullshit. And then I got berated about my grades, about not doing my work and my grades. And I had to be told what great students my mother and father always were. Until I found my mother's report. My mother was stupid enough to save her report cards, and I found them one day under her bed I was hiding under the bed, because I think me and my brother were playing hide and seek or something. And all of a sudden I saw these like old looking report cards. And they were hers. They were horrible. They were worse than mine ever were. I saw your report cards, drunkie. You left them under the bed. You had them in that stupid box. She was a worse student than I ever was. And then my father's family let it out what a fucking moron he was in school. My sister's grades were usually not as good as mine, so when report cards came home, she took the brunt of my parents' venom, and that afforded me a slight break. We were raised to be competitive with each other rather than to be friends. As an adult, I feel guilty that I enjoyed my breaks from the shitstorm at her expense, and I feel remorse that I did not even try to console her. My sister would burst into tears, then get yelled at for crying, and then be allowed to retreat to her room to think about how she was a failure. My sister is actually very brilliant, but because of her academic strengths were other than math and science, like my dad, she got zero credit for her talents. Their relentless criticism about grades wore her down to the point of learned helplessness, such that she went into every test with fear, and it made college traumatic rather than wonderful for her. My response to my parents' abuse tended more toward hidden anger rather than despair. I became an academic perfectionist and a straight A student, and therefore could avoid being in the crosshairs of their abuse, at least with respect to grades. I did, however, experience intense academic anxiety like my sister. Since perfect grades were expected, they never brought us any praise. The criticism was always sadistic and personal rather than constructive. For example, at the beginning of second grade, I brought home a note from the teacher that said I had to go to the special reading group because my reading skills were below average. My parents launched into a rage and screamed at me, "Why can't you read?" I shrugged. My dad grabbed the book, flipped it open, and pointed at words, screaming, "What does this say? What does this say? Why can't you read this?" They were furious at me. In a normal family, the parents would be aware that their child could not read and would try to help. Not in my family. I was on my own. For all the yelling and the Greek tragedy of it, neither one of them then tried to help me by reading with me or making flashcards. Thank God for Mrs. Phillips, the special reading teacher, who was kind and patient. I recall my mother criticizing me for having lots of children's books for my daughter and spending a lot of time reading to her. She sure had a lot of books. You sure like to spend Greg's money, end quote. As I've said in other letters, my mother seems to never miss an opportunity to berate me, even to the extent of saying a positive is a negative. You know, I was in speech class too when I was a little kid, because they said I couldn't say my S's. I thought I went like F, like that, and I didn't. But in a small school like that, they're constantly looking to expand classes and different teachers and different jobs. So they were taken these kids out of class because they couldn't speak correctly in first, second. I think I had to go for 3 years. And they wouldn't let me out of this class, and my parents made fun of me because I was in speech class, but I could speak fine. It wasn't until we were down the shore at my grandmother's house over the summer, and my grandmother in Virginia, this is Virginia, and she asked me, well, are you looking forward to go back to? I'm like, I just don't want speech class anymore. She's like, what's that? What do you mean speech? I'm like, because I can't say my S's. She's like, there's nothing wrong with your S's. And then her and my mother got into this screaming, man. Like, I forgot about that. Virginia was like, there's nothing wrong with the way he speaks. Like, what are you doing? And because her mother berated her and this whole, that was it. I never went back to speech class again. Forgot all about that one. In 5th grade, I had a report card of all B's. My dad was seething with anger and asked me why I got all B's. I replied, a B meant good, which he said, you think B is good? Get the hell out of my sight. I can't stand to look at you. You make me sick. You disgust me. Go to your room. You disgust me. I put his words in quotes because they are very vivid memory, and I remember my dad having wild eyes, which I would describe as looking at me with pure disgust. I thought that in my 50s I was over the pain and anger of this bullying, but found myself crying as I recounted this particular incident to my shrink a few months ago. In addition to grades, food also afforded my mom and dad an abusive control medium. When we were young, he would heap our plates with adult-sized portion and then yell at us to finish eating. We were not allowed to be full, and having the control to force us to eat to the point of pain was standard. My brother, 8 years younger than me, would cry that he was full, and my father would yell at him even though he was the golden child. I remember having my head bitten off once when I was 15 and tried to defend my sobbing little brother by telling Joe that it was wrong to give him a heaping adult portion and then yell at him to finish. We were always harshly warned by my mother that we would not get any food later in the evening, so we needed to eat now. Whenever I hear psychologists emphasize the importance of sit-down family meal for the children, I cringe and want to add the caveat. Yeah, because let me tell you something. A dinner table, yeah, it's important for family, and it also can be your worst fucking nightmare. Some of my worst memories are around that fucking table. This is only true if we're referring to a normal family. In a narcissist family, the opposite is true. Dinner time for us was a time of anxiety. We were yelled at to eat more when we were young and severely berated for taking seconds when we were in high school and constantly told we needed to lose weight. My sister and I were both about 10 pounds overweight. For most of my young childhood, we had to cough and gag with the smoke of my mother's cigarette at the dinner table. We were not allowed to have any likes or dislikes, however. My mother catered to my father's tastes. My mother took to the habit of eating clandestinely while cooking and then sitting at the table with a sparse plate and claiming that she was not hungry. All right, let me tell you something. This is how Drunky cooks. She cooks and is constantly just shoveling it in her. She's driving fucking chicken and pasta and whatever. Just driving it in there like it doesn't count. Like a savage, and then he'll sit down. I don't know why I'm so fat. Like, because you don't stop eating. Oh, she's so gross. She's so disgusting. Oh, everything she does is disgusting. What it must be like 24/7 now. 24/7 for you. That's amazing. This habit formed because my dad viciously berated her for being slightly overweight. And that's what my father would berate Drunky to this day. He will see a 14-year-old walk in front of the car and then look at her and say, you gotta lose weight. That's how fucked up he is. Whenever she was eating something, he frequently made snide remarks in a shitty tone. Didn't you just eat? Jesus, these are the lines my father used. You're eating again? It disgusts me to see you eat. Jesus Christ. These are all his favorites. Did my mother then projected that criticism and shame on me and my sister? Well, my mother would starve me when they weren't around. See, when my father wasn't around, my mother wouldn't give me food, and then at dinner I was starving, and then would make me look like I was some kind of fucking glutton. You know how many times she'd make because she knew I didn't like mustard or something, she'd put something on my sandwiches so I couldn't eat them at school because she knew I hated them. Her catchphrase to my sister was, "Don't eat so much or you'll be as big as a house." Wow, it's the same. It used to be a side of a house. You're like the side of a house. Ironically, my mother made lots of cookies and cakes, which are available instead of healthy snacks, because she did not actually want us to be slim, and she viewed the girls as competition. Besides being the food and weight anxiety hour, dinner was also a forum for my dad to brag about how well he did at work, how cleverly he made a joke, how he was smarter than everyone, and how he put a subordinate in his place. Neither my mother or father had any interest in how me or my sister's day went beyond quizzing us about grades. When my children were young, I tried a couple times to force them to eat peas and found it to be impossible. I wondered how it was that my sister and I were so obedient that we choked down peas while crying as my father yelled and hit our plate with his fork. Well, I guess you didn't try beating her and hitting your plate with a fork. That's how you do it. It's my firm belief that young children who are so obedient that they will choke down food on command do so in fear, and that parents can only achieve that level of fear by physical abuse. And you know what I found with kids as well? And never force feed a kid. Kid's not going to starve to death. Kid's not going to starve to death. They'll eat when they like kids don't have the taste buds we had. Like, they're not going to. If a kid puts something in their mouth and it tastes bad to them, why are you going to force them to swallow something that doesn't taste good? Everybody has different tastes. Like me, I don't like mustard. I don't like peanut butter. I don't like tomato sauce, all that. I mean, there's things I don't like that a lot of people don't like why? They're not being defiant. A child's not being defiant if they don't like the taste of something. So why are you forcing it down their throat? I understand you can't feed them all junk food, but you can find enough healthy alternatives that they want to eat, okay? So they're not spitting and gagging on their fucking food. Everybody's taste buds are different. You're not allowed to have taste buds in narcissism, though. Your taste buds are their taste buds. Although I don't have clear memories of bruising abuse from my toddlerhood, I do know that my sister and I were terrified of our dad and excruciatingly obedient to both parents. We were spanked with our pants and underwear pulled down up until the age of 9. Pulling down the pants was meant to be humiliating, as I knew from the age of 3 that being exposed was very bad. Chores also served as an opportunity for my mom and dad to let us know how disappointed they were in the girls. My dad would burst into our room between 7 and 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday and Sunday, shouting for us to get up in a mean tone. It's time to get up, get up. And that means you better arouse from a deep sleep and jump immediately out of bed. The message was that we were lazy, and my dad's abusive tone and yelling made that message loud and clear. To this day, I get up very early and unable to relax and take a nap because it was ingrained in me that sleeping is a sign of laziness. Virginia used to do that if you were around her. You weren't allowed to sleep around this woman. She would wake you up. My mother's a lot like that too, with the wants to fuck with your sleep, and I've made many videos of how narcissists love to fuck with your sleep. The chores were big even when we were little, such as cleaning his dusty shit in the garage, tarring the big driveway and breathing in the toxic fumes, or doing lawn work. Although I think it's great to teach kids how to work and how to be responsible, there's no need to make every exercise into an opportunity to tell us we were lazy and imperfect. Oh, that's what my father would do. My father would do shit like cut down trees. Like, cut down trees and just leave everything. Oh, yeah, now you cut it up into little fucking pieces and bundle it until I could nearly cut my hand off doing it. At 13, with a hand clipper and a fucking branch, and I came in bleeding, and my mother called screaming at you lazy fucking motherfucker. Like, it's weird what my parents, and here's the weird thing about my parents, okay, which might be a little different than other narcissists. They don't miss an opportunity to fuck with each other. That's the little weird thing with them. So if something happens with either my brother, obviously, because he was precious, but even if something happened to me that the other one could be blamed for, they blame him for it just so the conflict never ended. So like when I cut my hand that time because he was just being a lazy sack of shit, like she called him up and threatened to kill him. Like, you fuck, I'll kill you, you lazy sack of shit. Like, so it is weird sometimes too. My dad would have us wash his precious car, and we had to dry the whole thing with a leather chamois, so there was no water spots. My little hands would ache from the wringing of that chamois repeatedly. Again, I don't think it's absurd to teach a child the value of hard work. However, like everything else, the washing of the car served as yet another opportunity for dad to criticize. Yeah, chamois are generally made out of deer skin, and you gotta wring them hard to get the water. I mean, they're good for washing a car. You don't have a little kid use a chamois. You need elbow grease. He would inspect the car and point out some minor water spot we missed rather than thanking us. His tone was always harsh and mean. My mother ruled inside the house. She never thanked us for helping. For example, my mother would have me vacuum the basement, which was wall-to-wall carpeting. After I was done, she would always tell me how I did a half-assed job. Half-assed, or you did it deliberately wrong, so I won't ask you to do it again. But I always have to do it, so where's that theory coming from? You never actually vacuumed anything. The accusations when see, and here's the other thing with the narcissist accusations, when put under a microscope, don't hold up. They don't even make sense. They don't even make sense when you fucking analyze them. All of them. They don't even make sense. That was one of her pet expressions. I remember always feeling doubt and shame that I had been somehow careless. Therefore, I purposely experimented to get a reality check. One time I went over that damn carpet 4 times with the vacuum and very carefully inspected to verify it was perfect. As expected, my mother said, "Why bother to do something if you're just going to do it half-assed?" This time I told her I went over the carpet 4 times and I knew for sure that it was perfect, and I invited her to come downstairs and show me specifically where she claimed it was half-assed. Watch out. That threw her into a rage, accusing me of backtalk, and she refused to have a look with me. Because they know their accusations are bullshit. Right there's the proof. They know their accusations are bullshit. They don't hold up to the least bit of scrutiny. Not the least bit. When we were little kids, my mother would come into our room and pull drawers out of the dresser and then dump them on the floor and yell, "Clean up this mess." We'd be crying as we scrambled to try to get the stuff back into the drawers. Ironically, her drawers were always a big mess. She sometimes pulled this sadistic stunt before we were planning to go to a friend's house and play, and would say that we could not go because our room was such a mess. With all the drawers violently pulled and dumped, the room was indeed a mess. This was a perfect example of moving the finish line gaslighting technique that haunts me from my childhood. My brother, who was 8 years younger than me, and my sister was given no such chores as he grew up. Whereas my sister and I had to do all the lawn work, cleaning of the pool, and always had to get up early on the weekend. My dad actually hired a team down the street to mow the lawn, etc. when my sister and I went to college. My mother never had him do any of the housework because he was a boy. I remember being very aware of the difference in how he was treated and actually feeling relief for him. I did not blame my brother, but still was angry with my parents for treating the girls so harshly. My sister and I were simply referred to as the girls. My dad once said to my sister, if you think I was harsh with you as a kid, it's only because I wanted you to do well. Bullshit. You can't make this shit up. Treasure trouble. Yeah, they're bad people, man. They're bad people. And they're going to continue to move the goal line and make accusations that will never hold up. They fall apart under the least bit of... It doesn't even make sense. And they know that. So, thank you for another contribution and story. I hope this helped. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or you'd just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to help it succeed, grow, and survive, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you, this all goes away. So if you like these videos and you want to see more of them, you know what to do with the PayPal and email link in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.